Hi, I'm Dan from Costessey Sports Club, and I'm here with Alan Arber from the Offside Trust. They're our charity partner for the 2020-21 season. We'd normally be having our fundraising weekend in February, raising money for them. But as we can't, we decided to have this chat to find out a bit more about Alan and the Offside Trust. So, hello, Alan. How you doing?
Hi, Dan. How are you, mate? Nice to see you at long last.
Yeah, good. Coping okay.
We're getting through. I mean, it's difficult for everyone, isn't it? We've lost lots of events, such as you've lost games, and nothing gives me greater pleasure than to just basically turn up at a ground and watch a game. As you know, I don't really speak to many people. I just wander around and look at what's going on, and we talk later.
Yeah, well, I remember having a meeting with you at Longwater back in the days when we could do that, and we had all these plans about what we would do, and COVID's rather robbed us of them. So yeah, but I thought this would be useful to try and get to know what you guys do. Obviously, people are seeing the captain's armbands on our young players, and some of our teams have already got the Offside Trust badge on their shirts. But could you just start by sort of explaining who are the Offside Trust and what is it that they do?
The Offside Trust was formed by four gentlemen who went on the Victoria Derbyshire show. Steve Walters, Chris Unsworth, I can't remember the other two gentlemen off the top of my head. They formed the Offside Trust. Jason Mumford or something like that, and then there was I can't remember his name, Andy Woodward. They formed the Offside Trust because of the issues they'd had, as you know, over the Barry Bennell trial. So the idea is from the start of it and from that programme was to form an organisation that could help survivors of child sexual abuse actually have somewhere to go. It's been a remarkable success. We've obviously lost people along the way that have struggled with mental health issues, issues around what had happened to them as children, as you know, and the sheer abuse that they suffered, which was on as people know, the Bennell was called, I think, the most dangerous paedophile ever. And he was abusing people on what they called a factory-sized scale. So that's what we do. At present, we have helped well over 1,000 survivors of sexual abuse within sport, and that's not just football. That's boxing. That's also hockey. That's also cricket. That's also gymnastics. So you can see the level of support that is needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And for people that don't know who Barry Bennell is, can you just give a very brief? I know he's not the only one, but like you say, he's a very high profile.
There's been two really high profile ones, but Barry Bennell and Chris Higgins. Basically, Barry Bennell was what they called the star maker. He worked for clubs like Crewe, Manchester City, and others, and also ran holiday camps in the Northwest, which is where a lot of the abuse happened. And Higgins apparently was part of that scenario around the Southampton, Peterborough area and places like that. So they are both now serving very long sentences for, I use the word, industrial child sexual abuse. A lot of people that were abused by them are members of the Offside Trust.
Yeah, and that shows sort of the level of work that you guys need to do and how you've helped people. What's your role, Alan, within the Offside Trust, and what do you do for them on a regular basis outside of COVID?
I joined the Offside Trust after seeing the programme, because I too had been abused as a child. So for about a year, I had a lot of help from within the trust and obviously family members and other places. So I didn't really do much. We have what we call our own survivor days, where we go to professional clubs and have days out where we're all together and we can talk about it. We also have days where all our families meet, so the wives and girlfriends can get to talk about it as well. So that helps. So I basically became a member 3.5 years ago, about a couple of months after they formed. I reached out and they gave me some help. And then January 2019, I received a call from Steve Walters, who's the main director, and Gary Cliff, our other director, to ask me if I'd like to be the ambassador for East Anglia.
Which is a role you do very well. And if you don't already follow Alan on Twitter, I suggest you to start doing it. And for those that don't know, what's your history of football? Because you've been involved as a player and other positions within the game for a long period. So can you give us a bit of an idea of that?
I've been both a player and an administrator within the game, so I have a background in both. I played for such clubs as Wroxham, Hoverton, Lowestoft, Bury St Edmunds, Ballock Town. I was also an ex-England non-league international for 3 caps as well, which was a massive, massive honour. I also was a professional at Norwich City until a serious injury made me there. I then basically joined local clubs and became an administrator, firstly a manager, then a secretary, then an administrator. So I've got caps in both camps, and I understand how both functions work. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it can be a hindrance, I must admit.
Yeah, good. And so what projects, so obviously you're working with Costessey, but you're doing similar things with all over Norfolk and Suffolk, and so what projects have the Offside Trust got coming up at the moment in our area, in our part of the world?
Well, basically, firstly, we work with many clubs. Many clubs of, especially in East Anglia, we are the most hard-working area, if you see what I mean, that support the Offside Trust. Our projects really range from holding the awareness days, which we hope to hold. Obviously, we were hoping to hold one at your fundraising day and your 5-a-side tournament for people to come and see. They are a major fundraiser for us, because that's where we basically get most of our money from. We basically run our own account here in East Anglia, so everything we purchase for East Anglia is everything we get given is actually spent on our projects within East Anglia. We recently worked on a scheme with our neighbours across the water, Suffolk, with regarding young referees and providing support, really. Not actually looking at reasons, but just providing support. The sport is losing referees left, right and centre, mainly through not so much the sexual and that abuse side, but more the verbal abuse side. So the idea was we'd look at a scheme to let people know that there was a young referee and that he would get a little bit more respect. We produced a green armband, which has now gone out to all young referees in Suffolk, and I'm still awaiting some details on how the scheme's going. But obviously we did that, and then it all got shut down. I then had many meetings with Gavin Lemon and Matt Carpenter at Norfolk FA, and we are now in a process to announce that we will be bringing the similar scheme to Norfolk.
That's amazing.
And believe it or not, there's the armband.
Brilliant. Well, certainly from a Costessey point of view, we've got at least 3 young refs that have been players within the club who, and I've been at 2 games, even this season, as short as it's been, where I've seen adults use industrial language, shall we say.
I was at one of them, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was at one of them.
Yeah. And it's, from our point of view, we're heavily involved in the Respect campaign and trying to make the environment, certainly at youth games, a nicer place to be. So we would really support. I think that's a great idea that you guys are doing there.
Well, once we are now talking to they're a relatively cost-effective solution. We don't say they're going to spin the wheel and make it better, but if it allows people to understand that a young referee is under the age of 18, is refereeing a game, and parents can just give him that respect that he deserves. We don't just expect the respect of when he's refereeing, we expect that to start when he arrives, to start when he's during the game, and to finish at the end of the game. It doesn't hurt to go up and say, well done today, thank you for doing the game. You know, that's the idea we want to bring in. If it stops the abuse that happens, we all know, having watched Saturday, Sunday local football, then even up to the issue with Ipswich Town this week, that referees sometimes just get the untold abuse. So it's a scheme I'm passionate about because I believe it's needed, and it will hopefully, by doing the scheme, will bring more. It will show more young referees that Norfolk FA and the Offside Trust working together will allow them to get that respect that they should have.
Yeah,
and to take up the game, maybe.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. And like you say, we're losing referees, and we definitely need them to have the game that we all love. And I think, like you say, I don't think any initiative will ever eradicate stuff. But a conversation I had with someone at the FA not that long ago was, you just want to make it so it's not acceptable. So if we get the majority of people just realizing that you can't come to a park on a Saturday or Sunday and shout abuse at somebody, you wouldn't accept it in any other part of your life. So, you know, if the majority stop it and treat people accordingly, if they do it, then slowly and surely we will remove most of it from the game. I don't think you'll ever get rid of all of it, but that shouldn't be we shouldn't give up because that is the case. That should always be our target, I think.
I think you're spot on. I think at the end of the day, you know, organisations like ours that's now gaining respect all over the country, and we have some very high profile followers that help us and things like that, are really, really looking at these sort of schemes to hopefully, in the long run, it can become a national scheme where referees under a certain age are given that respect armband. It's based on the respect armband, the captain's respect armband, which I know lots of clubs have purchased, not just in Norfolk and Suffolk, I mean all over the country. I get emails and asking me to send them and things like that. I've got walking football teams that wear them, through to adult teams, and obviously big thank you to the likes of the Norfolk Combined Youth League that purchased a lot of them to give out, I think, from the age of 12 upwards. It was a remarkable gesture by Darren and the team. But you know, working with clubs in the long run, if even the younger age groups that don't have the respect armbands want them, we can still provide them in a way. So, you know, I believe that from every age group upwards there should be an element of that respect. And it's very difficult when you go to a game, especially me as a bystander in my little Offside Trust jacket. As you know, I say very little at the game. I just say hello and I wander around and watch, and I listen to some of the diatribe and diabolical things that parents say, or just normal people say, that they just wouldn't say in their normal life. What gives them a football match the right to give a player, a coach, and above all a referee, what gives them the right to give them that sort of abuse? As you say, if you did it in your normal job, you would lose your job.
Yeah, well, the bit, because I'm extremely passionate about this for kids football, which should be for me a fun and a learning environment. And if you know, I've no doubt, like, if you're a parent and you put your kid in a car and you drive them halfway across Norfolk on a Sunday morning to a game, you love your kid. I wouldn't question that. But if your kid came home and you found out two adults were effing and blinding at each other in the classroom, or, you know, some of the things, like you say, that go on a Saturday or Sunday morning happened in your kid's classroom, you would be up that school having a go at those people. But for some reason, people just sort of say, well, it's football, and I think we just got to lose that attitude. It is football and we love it, but it's for kids, and no other place I would take my kids would I expect to see that sort of behaviour or hear that sort of language.
it's just ridiculous, isn't it, really? You know, and then everyone's like, oh, it's just banter this and banter that. That word banter, you know, if you're bad language and or bad mouthing people, it's not banter. A lot of it is quite aggressive, quite, some people you watch are in people's faces, that, you know, and, you know, I'm all for things like the quiet games where parents and coaches aren't allowed to speak, apart from the coach speaks before the game, the coach speaks at half time, and the coach speaks after him. The rest of the time, the parents don't speak anything. I love the idea of the respect barriers, that the parents are a little bit away from the pitch, but, you know, I'd hate to see one day, we all are missing football at present. If this sort of abuse continues, can you imagine what would happen if you weren't allowed to go to a game? And, you know, we go back to an incident that happened, I think, a couple of years, or it might have been last year or the year before, where
taking photos outside.
sorry, where a young man suffered some quite dreadful abuse from a parent. Now that parent now can no longer see his son play football, or even he can take him to football. He's got to drop him at the door, and he has to go away. Now at the end of the day, the young kids are, why can't my dad come and watch? Doesn't it? But you know, we don't want that taken away. We want people to understand that if you do this, you will not be able to watch football anymore.
Yeah,
or you shouldn't be allowed to.
Well, I think, you know, I've used lockdown quite well, and gone on many webinars and listened to, you know, excellent coaches in the professional game, and every single one would talk about performance and development over results. How your kid performed is the thing you should worry about. If he lost 10-0 but he did his job well, don't worry about it. You know, like, I think that thing of people care so much about the result because they can't separate adult football, where the purpose of the game is the result, to kids football, where the purpose of the game is to learn and to develop as a player, and
to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what we need to do, I think, is, like with everything, it's just education. We just need to make sure people understand why they're there in the first place, and then, you know, you'll, as you just said, you'll enjoy the game a lot more if you're relaxed about it. Your kid will enjoy the game a lot more if you're relaxed about it, and everyone will have a much better experience. You know, if you think of your favorite games you've ever been to, everyone's laughing, you're chatting to the opposition fans down the line, and you're having a good time, which happens a lot. It's not, you know, the bad behavior is still there, but it's not every week, thank God, you know. But I still want to get rid of it.
It's not quite as detrimental as well either, is it? You know, there's always that element of the banter that goes on the pitch between players, but, you know, I've played in games where it's been, you think it's quite difficult, but at the end of the day, you walk in the bar and you have a pint and it's over and done with. But when it rolls around, you're watching a child play football, you know, their development as a person comes from when they play sport. You know, I know personally how losing your childhood can affect you. Now, if you're honest, the biggest gift you give to this earth is a child. Treat them with respect at all times, and they will learn to respect you and to respect everything else around it. This, I feel, is not just a football thing. I think it's a social thing now. You know, children aren't taught the respect that we were taught as children, basically, anymore. Many are, but there's a small element that aren't, and you'll find that's the small element that causes the issues at games.
I think that was absolutely perfectly put, Alan, there. Absolutely amazing. Just a couple more things, then we'll just sort of wrap it up. But obviously, I don't know if people are aware, Norfolk FA have just launched a load of new safeguarding videos. With everything that's happening with COVID and people not being able to see people, you know, CRBs and doing the necessary checks are sort of being highlighted as the importance of keeping those going. What safeguarding advice would you give to parents who are looking to get their kid into football, or choosing a new team or club or anything like that?
If they're looking to get the child into football, I'd look at a club that's well run. I'd look at a club that has all their safeguarding information available for them to see. They don't have to say, I'll get back to you in a week. It's there and then. I'd look at a club that's got a safeguarding officer that's approachable and can be seen. You know, that to me is quite a big thing, and it's something I want to work on with clubs. I'd look at the manner the club is run, how it's run, who runs it. I'd also look at I'd also do a little bit of research, and I'd look at the club, and I'd ask around, you know. That for me is the most important. I'd also look at the coaches. How do the coaches coach? Do they coach for development, or do they coach to win? I understand what people want to see, want to go to football to win. We all want to go to football to win. But at the age of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, winning is not as important as developing yourself as a player and a person. That to me would be what I would say to parents. I'd also say ensure that where they're going to put the child is a happy place, that the child comes home, he's smiling. How'd you get on today? Oh, we lost, Mum, but I had a really good morning. You know, how was training? Oh, it's great fun, Mum. We did this and this. We did something different. That sort of thing is what I would look at.
Brilliant. Because one of the things we often get asked as a club is, and I'm sure loads of grassroots clubs have the similar thing, is you'll have one team, for one reason or another, coach has to step down and someone wants to step up to take that on. And we obviously have to follow certain guidelines to ensure the safety of the children. We might not know that new guy or girl that's wanting to step up, and have to make sure they go through the necessary checks. And sometimes we get questioned because we're like, the parents of the team might be, well, you're stopping them play football. But can you sort of expand on the importance of why we have to do these checks?
The end of the day, it's very difficult as a club because coaches come and go. They've either had enough work pressures, there could be something in the family that means they have to step away. It is 100% important that the coach that takes on that role is fully DBS checked, is fully checked by the club, is fully aware of the respect the club expects him to coach in and the way he's expected to deal with things. It's very difficult for parents to not quite understand, oh, they can't play for 2 weeks while the DBS check goes through. Could clubs do a little bit more at the start of the season and maybe ask some parents if they know there's an issue? That's obviously something. But you know what, as someone that's been an administrator, you don't know that on a Sunday someone's lost 10-0 for 5 weeks and suddenly says, I can't do this anymore. So the next week the child can't play because there's no one to take the team. But parents have to realise these measures are in place to safeguard their children.
Yeah, thanks,
and
Alan.
to safeguard their children to play in a happy manner that is safe and there is no issues in the background. The last thing a club like yourselves or any club in Norfolk and Suffolk wants to find is a background issue that should have been dealt with. Yeah, because we were too late. They missed out not following the rules.
Yeah,
Norfolk FA are very good. They make these rules for a reason. We work with them because they follow their rules exactly as they should be. You as a club are the reasons why when we met, you obviously know that I asked you some searching questions as you asked me. Parents need to realise that it's got to be that environment. End of story. There's no questions asked. If you suddenly promote someone 2 weeks down the line, something has happened, you know, that you weren't aware of. It's not that coach that's tarred with that brush, it's the whole club.
Yeah,
and again, it's
important. As you quite rightly said, it's the safety of the children, isn't it? That's,
yes,
we've always got to assume the worst and just wait to be proved wrong. That's kind of the way we've got to treat everything.
I'll give you a little insight into that. I went to a club on the edge of Suffolk just to watch training, just to look at how things are run. They wanted to come on board with us. I'm walking around as I do, not really saying a lot, just taking out the corner of my eye, I spot someone taking photographs. So I say to someone, who's in charge? Oh, he is. Grab me. Do you know that gentleman's taking photographs? Yeah, he just takes some of the local wildlife. I said, but have you checked the camera? Have you basically asked him who he is? Oh, he comes every week. To me, that's a safeguarding issue straight away.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and that's the sort of thing that you as a club, and this is a conversation we had quite early on in our relationship, are very strict on. That's the reason why people go through DBS checks and coaches are in the best place to run the team. For 2 weeks, I'd rather a team didn't play for 2 weeks and you had all the safeguards in place than a team played for 2 weeks and then something had happened.
Yeah, well,
For me, that's more
like you
important.
say, we follow the safeguarding protocols, and ideally we want 2 coaches, but sometimes in each team, but sometimes that's really difficult just to find the volunteers. And if you've got one coach that's got all the qualifications and he's willing to run a team, you want to offer as many kids the opportunity to play as possible, which is what we do. But we just can never be in a position where we've got a team in place, even if for training level, you know, whatever it is, if they haven't got those required checks. Finally, Alan, just we've got 28 coaches in our team, in our club, I should say. You know, is there any advice you would give for coaches just to protect themselves and make sure that they're doing everything right from a safeguarding point of view?
This is something I don't want to frighten people about. But for us, it's looking at things like mood changes. How if you've got a young person turns up to training for 6 weeks, he's happy as Larry, he's having a really, really good time, whatever. On the 7th week, there's a mood change, there's a reason. But I wouldn't be worried on the 7th. It's the 8th week, things are exactly the same. I'd be looking at things like that, the mood change. Was he being dropped off by certain people, by his parents, or was it someone around the corner? Things, it's really horrible to say. Things like dirty kit. Are they turning up with their kit really dirty? Are they turning up with their hair matted? Are they turning up with looking like they've not had a good meal, basically? I understand that all families go through traumas and things like that. But as I said before, your biggest gift to this world is a child. So for a coach, I would always, and me as a coach, even as an adult coach, I would always look at how my players turned up.
Yeah.
Because that would dictate to me how the session would go. And to me then, as a coach, I would then go to a safeguarding officer and say, actually, I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But I can tell you straight now, that child will only ever speak to his best friend or his coach. He'll never speak to anyone else. I never spoke to my parents for 40 years about what happened to me. So I think the safeguarding officer needs to work with the coaches to ensure that everything is how the coach would like it. And I think the coach works with the safeguarding officer if he's got any things he's not quite sure about.
That's brilliant advice, because I think one of the good things about grassroots football now, when I was a kid, you seemed to have a coach for a year or so, and then you'd have another one, and then you'd have another one. Nowadays, you get someone generally that will take you from, both my sons have had the same coach from under 4s all the way through. So like you say, that's really easy then to spot, hold on, there's changes in the way he's behaving or acting, or the way he's looking and things like that. So I think that's really good advice.
I think you've got to look at that as it not just being an issue around an abuse issue. It could be a change in his teacher at school. Is there something happening at school that's going on? Lots of things, manifest themselves. 9 times out of 10, the happy place a child normally is when he's enjoying his friends and his favourite sport. If they keep turning up and they're not quite the person they were earlier on then I would be a little bit cautious. And I'd be very cautious about how I approached it as well. It's the most difficult question to ask. It may be that you go and have a private word with someone and say, maybe a family friend first and foremost. Do you know of anything that's going on? And then I go, well, actually, I don't really want to speak about it. You should. There's ways of nipping it in the bud early, but it's how you approach doing that.
Yeah, And I think, you know, much as the same way as we spoke about before with the parents and just making sure that we have all the checks, it's just being observant, isn't it? Making sure that we're doing the right things, and 99 times out of 100 we hope that there'll be nothing serious behind it. But if we're not doing those right things, if we're not being observant, we could miss that opportunity where we're really needed to help somebody, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. But the problem is your whole club is then tarred with that brush, not just that one team.
Yeah.
And that's you as a chairman have two hats on. One is three hats. One as a coach, one as a parent, and one as the overall, the man everyone looks to. You know, I think I would say that majority of clubs that I've been to have the correct procedures in place. Leagues now are so much more aware of issues around things and that. So I think there is a very little amount of issues, but if you can nip it in the bud early, you're going to save yourself lots and lots of grief, lots of visits to the FA, visits from various agencies. That's the last thing you want. But for me, I would say that that's the best advice, is just be observant at all times. It may be, you know, we all coach when you've got 12 children running around. The 13th may be the one that you should focus on a little bit more. If you understand what I mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know,
well, Alan, thank you so much for your time. And you know, I think it's really great to get your insight into everything. And hopefully, when we can start again, if people see you around at games, they might now be able to come up to you and ask you.
Well, at the end of the day, I am approachable. I'm quite a nice fella, as you know. You know, we have some up and coming projects that we're looking to do. Maybe running some an Offside Trust youth tournament within Norfolk alongside yourselves. We started something last year called the Offside Cup, which 2 teams played for. It raised £100 between 2 teams on a Sunday morning, which we've got teams from Suffolk wanting to join, and we're also looking at maybe doing an Offside Trust Saturday Cup as well. So the important thing for us is to continue to raise awareness, to give clubs like yourselves a focal point to come to. Little chats like this help, because you don't quite know everything that goes on in the background. You know, can I just signpost you to something that's coming up on the 23rd of March? It's a 3-part documentary around the Barry Bennell abuse, and it is a lot of the lads from the Offside Trust that are on it, so you'll get an idea of if your parents want to look at it or watch it. We'll all be promoting it. I'm going to ask all clubs and leagues to promote it as well, you know, and I sincerely look forward to working immensely hard with all of you and having a cup of coffee at Costessey one day and watching a lovely tournament while we're standing on our stand, me and Bazza, and just doing stuff and that. You know, we can't thank every single club enough for how they've come on board with our ethos and thoughts. We hope it's made a difference. We believe it is making a difference. We've held something in the region of 18 awareness days now. 16 people have come forward to say they were abused. So that's given them a medium to talk. It's how I got to talk again, how I learned to get my voice back. And, you know, what we'd also like to say is to clubs, and especially, it's not just the children. If the parents have an issue, they can come and talk to us. It's the whole issue, not just around sport.
Well, yeah, I think, you know, like from our point of view, the work you guys are doing to make football a safer, more enjoyable place for everyone involved in it is unbelievable. And that's why we wanted to take this time to try and, you know, our plan was to do this more face to face with people, but we haven't been able to. So in the meantime, we just thought this would be a great way. But yeah, the work you've done, and as I said, anyone follows Alan on Twitter knows he's never off it promoting the work that goes on. So
we try our best. I have a fantastic volunteer, and I have some fantastic suppliers that look after us as well, and everything, and nothing gives me greater pleasure than to walk up to a game and see the Offside Trust on a child's shirt, or the daft little armband idea that we put out, the Respect armband. You know, to go to, where did I go recently? I think it was Costessey the last time I actually watched a game. There's 5 games. All 10 teams are wearing our armband, and 5 clubs are wearing our logo on their shirts. That is incredible. You know,
Yeah.
I think, you know, the news that the Ipswich Youth League has renamed itself the Offside Trust Ipswich Youth League. They're
Yeah.
now doing their match balls with our logo emblazoned into their match ball. These are incredible things, and I look forward to holding a day at Costessey where people, don't be frightened of us, come and say hello. We're normal people, but we just have I have a bit of a sinister, horrible background that someone or people decided to take away. So
Yeah, well, again, thank you so much for your time today, Alan. It's been really great
Yeah.
chatting to you.
Okay, Dan, thanks, mate. Cheers. Bye bye.